health. McConnell previously suffered a concussion and a broken rib after falling and hitting his head at a dinner event, but he didn't return to the Senate for almost 6 weeks. Several GOP senators confirming their confidence in McConnell and his ability to finish his term, but others expressing concern.
Spending are raising the likelihood of a government shutdown in October. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
It's that time of year again where partisan disputes over spending are on full display here. While both the House and the Senate have passed the National Defense Authorization Act, the versions are a bit different. Those differences need to be reconciled. The main differences here are cultural ones. In the House side, they restricted funding for cultural issues like abortion, transgender care, diversity programs. The vast differences are even more so in the government funding bills. And what's compounding that problem is the fact that there are some in the GOP who are fiercely demanding spending cuts. Even some, like Congressman Bob Good, are willing to risk a government shutdown to meet those demands.
We should not fear a government shutdown. Most of what we do up here is bad anyway. Most of what we do up here hurts the American people.
And here again, they want to strip funding for culture issues. Speaker McCarthy has encouraged House appropriators to write their spending bills under the levels agreed upon in the debt ceiling deal, but Senate appropriators have written their appropriations bills at much higher levels, setting up this collision course.
Look, he is the leader of the Senate. I'm the leader of the House. I don't want government to shut down. I want to find that we can find common ground.
Instead of just throwing out partisan bills that have no chance of passing.
So, Melina, if the House and Senate lawmakers aren't able to come to any type of agreement before September 30th, will there be a government shutdown, or is there another path they could take to avoid it?
We've seen this pretty regularly over the past couple of years, and what could happen is the Congress passes a temporary funding bill, but in this case, they're just spending money to kick the can down the road and deal with these disagreements later. Now, another issue here is that there are some Republicans who routinely vote against these type of temporary funding bills. So in this case, if McCarthy is to take this path, he might have to rely on some Democrat votes.
Melina, thank you for that. And Republican presidential candidates all speaking in Iowa tonight. The Lincoln Dinner is one of the GOP's largest annual fundraisers. Here are the details.
Almost all declared major candidates of the 2024 Republican presidential primary are in Iowa on Friday. They're scheduled to speak at the Lincoln Dinner, a Republican fundraising event in Des Moines. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis made a campaign stop in Albia, Iowa on Friday before heading to the state's capital. Iowa holds the first primary election in the nation. It's considered a key state for the candidates, hoping that they can surpass Trump's strong lead in polling. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott held a town hall in the Hawkeye State on Thursday. On Friday night, 13 Republican candidates each have exactly 10 minutes to address a crowd of around 1,200 people. To ensure compliance with the strict 10-minute rule, microphones will be deactivated after 10 minutes. Only former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie will be absent from the lineup. He's instead focusing his efforts on New Hampshire voters. Tickets to attend the event, which range in price from $150 to more than $1,000 per person, are sold out. Former UN Ambassador and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is the first speaker. DeSantis is scheduled to be third. Former President Trump is the last speaker of the night. DeSantis is in the middle of rebooting his campaign. A standard reboot usually includes 3 steps: cutting expenses and slashing staff, reshuffled leadership, and a shift in focus to more grassroots, smaller events in early primary states. DeSantis is currently doing all 3 of those things, and the governor is reportedly set to unveil his economic policy in New Hampshire on Monday. The policy is expected to be heavily focused on strategically decoupling the American economy from China and the globalist elites that have been wreaking havoc on the American dream. The speech is set to be the governor's 3rd major policy announcement.
Did former President Trump have security tapes deleted? He says he did nothing wrong. NTD's legal correspondent Arlene Richards has more of Trump's response.
I don't think they think that the tapes were even changed. These were my tapes that we gave to them.
Former President Trump, in an interview on the John Frederick Show, responding to new charges added to his indictment in the classified documents case. In an updated indictment on Thursday, prosecutors accused Trump of 1 additional count of willful retention of national defense information and 2 additional obstruction counts. Prosecutors say Trump asked a staffer Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira to delete camera footage at his Florida estate. This comes as they also added de Oliveira as a third defendant and brought new charges against valet Walt Nelta. Trump told Fredericks that he's not sure he even had to turn over the tapes. He said he thinks prosecutors are trying to intimidate people.
So that people go out and make up lies about me because I did nothing wrong.
Some Republicans and Democrats reacted to the new charges.
I've always been concerned. I had dealt with secrets since I was 21 years old, top secrets and you name it. And we should protect them. And this is not something to take lightly.
Republican Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy questioned why President Biden hasn't been charged.
When he was a senator, he took a document. How many years is that and there's been no prosecution? How can you be so quick to judge President Trump in a short time period and you've had all this other, but you can't deal with that?
I am not a lawyer, but if you are deleting evidence, it's because you know you're committing a crime.
Well, the evidence was already strong in the original indictment, but in this superseding indictment now, you just see how much more evidence the special counsel has.
Trump said despite the new charges, he is still leading in the polls, and he has no plans to step out of the race. But he had some advice for top contender
Mueller.
Ron DeSantis.
I think he has to get out for the good of the party.
Trump is scheduled to go to trial in May 2024 in Florida, at which point the Republican nomination may already be decided.
May have to find something else to criticize me for. Now that inflation is coming down, maybe they'll decide to impeach me because it's coming down. I don't know.
And more people being laid off.
President Biden has been traveling weekly to talk about his Bidenomics agenda. But next week, he's going to take a break by taking a week-long vacation in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, before coming back here next Sunday. Reporting from the White House, Iris Howe, NPD News.
Rifle, killing 5 before officers fatally shot him. Another 8 people were injured, including Wilt. Healthcare workers and other well-wishers lining up 2 or 3 deep for his send-off. At the request of hospital officials, the celebration was quiet, but cheers erupted once he left the hospital lobby.
I just think it's really important that everybody in the community shows how much we appreciate what a hero Officer Wilt was, how proud we are at the LMPD, and how much we are just 100% behind the progress that he's making and getting better, and we want the family to know how much we support them.
Officer Wilt will continue his therapy with outpatient care at a rehab center. 2 weeks ago, when she disappeared after calling 911 to report a child wandering near an interstate. She returned home 2 days later, telling investigators she was abducted when she stopped to check on the child. Questions still remain about where she was for those 2 days. Now Russell facing 2 criminal misdemeanors for falsely reporting an incident, admitting she was not kidnapped and there was no child walking along the highway. Alabama's Attorney General saying significant hours and resources were wasted investigating her case. Both charges could possibly carry up to a year in jail. Behind the collapse, the accident sending 16 tons of concrete crashing down 45 stories onto a busy Manhattan street. A high-ranking city official saying that the crane initially caught fire due to a hydraulic leak before crashing to the ground. Records show that the operator was fined and had his license suspended back in 2008 after he cut a guardrail off a crane platform, causing the death of a worker. The crane operator was taken to a nearby hospital, but the extent of the injuries is not known.
Get away from the hustle and bustle of some of their most popular parks and camping sites. Now they're telling you the secret gem spots that you can only reach by boat or foot. Garden Key is located 70 miles from Key West, and it's the only campground at Dry Tortugas National Park. You can only reach the island by a ferry. And Little Yosemite Valley, nestled away in the Yosemite National Park, is only reachable by foot. It sits at an elevation of 2,600 feet, and you have to pass by the Nevada waterfalls to get there. And if hiking through the rocks and taking a ferry isn't your kind of remote getaway, this might be. Glamping sites across the country are gaining popularity. They're all of the seclusion with all of the amenities. New websites like Glamping Hub are popping up that help you find a decked out cabin to fit your needs. And states like Michigan are opening up Tree Vistas, the first of its kind luxury treehouse resorts. From the woods all the way to the water, the best place to fish for salmon this year might require a trip for you to get there. Bristol Bay, Alaska is pulling the highest number of projected fish expecting to return to their bay. And even though they're expecting less salmon to pass through than last year, their models are still expecting a total run of 51.7 million sockeye salmon for 2023. The fish bring in tourists, which in turn help boost the local economy.